Marcus stood in the doorway with the key still in his hand, looking at the empty living room like it was proof. 34 years old, operations manager, new three-bedroom house, $400,000. He had just wired an $80,000 down payment out of an account that had taken him almost 9 years to build. The money was gone from his savings screen, but in Marcus's mind, it had not disappeared. It had changed form. It was in the walls now. It was in the yard, the garage, the extra bedroom he said would be an office, but might become a nursery someday. It was in the sentence he kept repeating to himself as he walked from room to room. 20% down, no PMI, fixed rate, responsible. His mortgage was $320,000 at 6.8% for 30 years. The principal and interest payment came out to roughly $2,086 a month, and when Marcus compared that number to what his friends were paying in rent, he felt like he had finally stepped onto the right side of the line, because rent felt like smoke. A check goes out, a month goes by, and nothing remains. But a mortgage payment felt different. It felt like moving money from one pocket to another. Some to the bank, yes, but some to himself. Every month, a little more ownership. Every month, a little less debt. Every month, one step away from being a renter and one step closer to being wealthy. Across town, Elena was writing a $2,200 rent payment for a comparable three-bedroom home. Elena was 32, a physical therapist, and she had watched the housing market with the kind of caution that comes from knowing how quickly one expensive decision can swallow the rest of your life. Her rent was not cheap. She knew that, but she also did not have a property tax bill arriving twice a year. She did not have a roof that might become a $14,000 problem. She did not have closing costs buried in the excitement of moving day. She did not have an HOA board telling her which shade of white was acceptable for a fence. And if her clinic changed ownership, or if she got a better job in another city, or if her life simply moved in a direction she could not predict yet, she could leave. Marcus looked at Elena and saw someone paying for nothing. Elena looked at Marcus and saw someone trapped inside a high-interest asset with an expensive front door. And the uncomfortable part is that both of them had a point. Marcus was not foolish. He bought a normal house with a normal down payment. He avoided PMI. He locked in a fixed payment in a country where rents can rise every year and landlords do not ask permission before changing the terms of your life. Elena was not irresponsible. She valued flexibility. She avoided tying up $80,000 in one illiquid asset. She avoided the repair risk and the transaction costs that homeowners often forget until the invoice arrives. Both choices looked rational, but both of them were looking at the wrong number. Marcus was comparing his $2,086 mortgage payment to Elena's $2,200 rent and thinking he was ahead by $114 a month. That comparison is clean. It is also incomplete, because Marcus's mortgage payment was not his housing cost. It was only the bank payment. Add roughly $400 a month for property taxes. Add $150 for homeowner's insurance. Add $333 a month for maintenance reserves, which is about 1% of the home's value per year. Add another $150 for HOA dues. Now Marcus's real monthly housing cost is not $2,086. It is about $3,119 before utilities. And in the months when something actually breaks, when the water heater fails, or the garage door motor dies, or the plumber charges $600 to discover the real problem is worse than the first problem, it can feel closer to $3,400. That does not make buying bad. It makes the math honest, because Elena's $2,200 rent really does leave her with a monthly gap. Depending on the month, Marcus may be paying $900 to $1,200 more than she is for a similar place to live. But Elena has her own hidden trap. Renting only wins financially if she captures that difference. If she takes the $900 gap and turns it into restaurant upgrades, weekend trips, a nicer car payment, and a general feeling that life is easier, she has not outsmarted homeownership. She has simply rented and consumed the advantage. The money has to go somewhere on purpose. Otherwise, Marcus is building at least some equity, slowly, while Elena is just enjoying better cash flow with nothing to show for it later. And slowly is the word Marcus does not feel yet. On a $320,000 mortgage at 6.8%, the first year is not the wealth-building machine most people imagine when they say, "At least I'm paying myself." In the first month, about $1,813 of his payment goes to interest. Only about $272 reduces the loan. Over the first year, Marcus pays around $25,000 in principal and interest, but only about $3,400 actually pays down the mortgage. The rest is mostly interest to the lender. Then come property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and HOA dues. After 5 years, Marcus may have paid more than $187,000 in all-in housing costs, but his mortgage balance may have fallen by only about $19,000. That equity is real, but it is not the same as saying every mortgage payment built wealth. And if Marcus needs to sell too soon, that equity can be cut down by closing costs, repairs before listing, and a 6% selling commission that can take tens of thousands of dollars off the table. This is the paradox. The renter looks like she is paying for nothing. The buyer looks like he is building wealth, but in year one, both are mostly paying for housing consumption. Marcus is paying through interest, taxes, insurance, upkeep, and fees. Elena is paying through rent. The difference is not which payment feels more respectable. The difference is what happens to the cash that is left over, how long the owner stays, and whether the hidden costs ever get counted. Buying can create wealth over long holding periods, but at high rates and normal transaction costs, the early years are mostly interest, taxes, upkeep, and fees, not equity. So Marcus has the house key, Elena has the rent check, and both believe the other person is making the expensive mistake. Professor Wealth ran the numbers, and the first thing he noticed was how clean Marcus's decision looked from the outside. A $400,000 house, an $80,000 down payment, no PMI, a fixed 30-year mortgage at 6.8%. Marcus borrowed $320,000, and his principal and interest payment came out to about $2,086 a month. That number mattered because Elena's rent across town was $2,200 a month. So Marcus looked at the comparison and thought, wait a second, I own the house, and my payment is actually $114 lower than her rent. That is the moment where ownership feels almost obvious, because Marcus is not just buying shelter, he is buying an asset. His payment has a deed attached to it. Elena is sending money to a landlord. Her payment has a due date attached to it. And emotionally, those two payments do not feel equal. Mortgage sounds like progress. Rent sounds like disappearance. But this is where the illusion begins, because Marcus is not comparing housing cost to housing cost. He is comparing the bank payment to the landlord payment, and the bank payment is only one piece of owning. Once the full ownership costs show up, the picture changes. Marcus has property taxes of about $400 a month, homeowner's insurance at about $150 a month, a maintenance reserve of about $333 a month if he budgets 1% of the home's value per year, and HOA dues of $150 a month. Now his $2,086 mortgage payment becomes a realistic monthly housing cost of about $3,119 before utilities, and that is in a normal year. In a year where the water heater dies, the fence needs repair, or the HVAC system starts making a sound that no responsible adult can ignore, the lived experience can feel closer to $3,400 a month. Marcus is still building something, but his cash flow is not really $2,086 versus Elena's $2,200. His real comparison is closer to $3,119 versus $2,200. That creates a monthly spread of $919. Over 1 year, Marcus is sending out about $11,028 more than Elena for a comparable housing need. Over 5 years, before rent increases and before investment returns, that spread is $55,140. That does not automatically make Elena the winner. It just means the original comparison was incomplete, because the next question is not who has the lower visible payment. The next question is what each person gets to keep, and this is where Marcus's mortgage becomes less romantic. At a 6.8% interest rate, the first month's interest on a $320,000 loan is about $1,813. His total principal and interest payment is about $2,086. So in that first month, only about $273 actually reduces the loan balance. The rest goes to interest, not because the bank is doing anything unusual. That is simply how amortization works on a long mortgage at a higher rate. Over the first year, Marcus pays about $25,032 in principal and interest, but roughly $21,650 of that goes to interest. Only about $3,380 goes toward principal. Then add the other ownership costs, about $4,800 in property taxes, about $1,800 in homeowners insurance, about $4,000 in maintenance reserves, about $1,800 in HOA dues. Now, Marcus's first-year owner cash cost is around $37,400, and out of that, only about $3,380 became loan principal. That is the paradox. Marcus is building equity, but far more slowly than it feels when he holds the key. Elena is paying rent, but Marcus is also paying for housing consumption. He is just doing it through interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and fees. In year one, Elena pays $26,400 in rent. Marcus pays around $37,400 all in. If Elena spends the $11,000 difference, she ends the year with no housing equity and no offsetting investment. Marcus is ahead by the principal he built, even though his cash flow was heavier. But if Elena saves the difference, the comparison changes. Marcus has about $3,380 in new home equity from principal paydown. Elena has about $11,000 in liquid savings before investment growth. Same houses, same market, different behavior. And behavior is where renting either becomes a strategy or becomes exactly what Marcus thinks it is. Now, bring back the down payment. Marcus's $80,000 is not gone. It is inside the house. It reduced his mortgage, helped him avoid PMI, and gave him a stronger starting position. That is real value, but it is also locked up. If Elena had the same $80,000 and invested it instead of putting it into a down payment, the 5-year math depends on returns, so use a realistic assumption, not a promise. Say she earns 5% annually after fund fees, and after modest taxable drag in a brokerage account. Maybe that becomes about 4.25% after taxes. At 4.25% for 5 years, her $80,000 grows to about $98,500. Then add the monthly spread. If Elena invests the $919 difference each month at the same after-tax return, those monthly contributions grow to about $61,400 over 5 years. Together, she could have around $159,900 in investments after 5 years. Again, not guaranteed. Markets move, taxes differ, life happens. But the point is not that renting always wins. The point is that the down payment has an opportunity cost, and the monthly spread has a destination. Marcus's money is in the house. Elena's winning version has money in investments. Elena's losing version has money in restaurants, upgrades, travel, and small lifestyle changes she barely remembers. Now test the sentence buyers love to use. At least Marcus gets his money back when he sells. Maybe, but only after the exit costs. Assume the house appreciates 3% a year for 5 years. That is reasonable, not guaranteed. A $400,000 home becomes about $463,700. After 5 years, Marcus's mortgage balance is around $300,600, meaning he paid down roughly $19,400 of principal. On paper, his gross equity is the home value minus the loan balance. That is about $163,100. That sounds excellent, but selling a home is not free. If the selling costs are 6% of the sale price, that is about $27,800. After selling costs and paying off the $300,600 loan, Marcus walks away with about $135,300. That includes his original $80,000 down payment. So compared with the down payment, he appears to be up about $55,300. But that is not the whole story. He also paid about $55,140 more in monthly owner costs than Elena over those 5 years, and he may have paid around $10,000 in buying closing costs when he purchased the home. Suddenly, the 5-year advantage is not nearly as clean as it looked. The appreciation helped, the principal paydown helped. But transaction costs and higher monthly ownership costs took a large bite out of the gain. This is why the early years of ownership are honest. They reveal whether the house is actually building wealth or whether the buyer is mostly buying stability, control, and the feeling of progress. Now, compare the 3 outcomes. Scenario 1. Marcus buys, the home appreciates 3% per year, and he sells after 5 years. He may walk away with about $135,300 after selling costs, but that includes his original down payment, and it ignores the fact that he paid over $55,000 more in monthly housing costs than Elena. Scenario 2. Elena rents for $2,200, invests the same $80,000, and invests the $919 monthly spread. At a 4.25% after-tax return, she may have about $159,900 after 5 years. Scenario 3. Elena rents, spends the $919 difference, and leaves the $80,000 sitting in low-yield cash. Now, she may fall behind the disciplined version of Marcus, because Marcus's house forced him to save through principal paydown and appreciation, even if the early years were expensive. That is the real decision, not buying versus renting as an identity, forced saving versus voluntary saving, stability versus flexibility, long time horizon versus transaction costs. Marcus's position improves the longer he stays. Selling costs get spread across more years. The loan slowly shifts toward more principal. Appreciation has more time to compound. The house has more time to overcome the expensive entrance and exit fees. Alina's position improves only if she captures the spread. If she automates the $919 each month into a brokerage account, treasury bills, an index fund, a Roth IRA when eligible, or some combination that fits her plan, renting stops being just consumption. It becomes flexibility plus accumulation. But if the difference disappears into lifestyle creep, then Marcus was right about one thing. Renting did not build wealth. It just created more room to spend. So the practical rule is not that everyone should buy, and it is not that everyone should rent. Marcus should buy if he can stay at least 7 years, keep the all-in payment manageable, maintain an emergency fund for repairs, and understand that the first years are mostly about stability, not fast equity. Elena should rent if the monthly spread is large, if her job or life may change, or if buying would drain her cash reserves. But she must automate the difference, because the numbers do not say homes are bad. They say the first 5 years are honest. They expose who is really building wealth and who is only buying the feeling of it. Marcus is still standing there with the house key in his hand. Elena is still looking at that $2,200 rent payment, but now the picture is different. Marcus was not foolish. He bought with 20% down. He avoided private mortgage insurance. He chose a fixed payment in a world where housing costs can move fast. There is real value in that. Stability has value. Control has value. Knowing your child can stay in the same school district has value. Elena was not weak. She kept flexibility. She avoided the roof risk, the property tax bill, the surprise water heater, the homeowners association dues, and the 5-figure closing costs. In a high-rate market, that flexibility can be worth a lot. The mistake was not buying, and the mistake was not renting. The mistake was measuring the wrong thing. Marcus thought his mortgage payment was the same as wealth building, but in the early years, most of that payment was interest. Then came taxes, insurance, maintenance, homeowners association dues, closing costs, and the future cost of selling. His house was building equity, but slowly, and only after a long line of unrecoverable costs got paid first. Elena thought renting protected her from the expensive side of ownership, and it did, but only if the difference became part of her balance sheet. If she had a $900 or $1,200 monthly advantage and spent it on upgrades, vacations, cars, and comfort, she did not beat the homeowner. She just consumed the spread. That is the mechanism both of them missed. The real comparison was never mortgage payment versus rent. It was total unrecoverable cost versus total unrecoverable cost, plus what happens to the cash difference. The key did not automatically mean wealth. The rent check did not automatically mean waste. The hidden math decided what each choice became. Buy when the home fits your life for at least 7 years, when the all-in payment still leaves breathing room, and when you understand the early reward is usually stability, not fast equity. Rent when flexibility matters, when ownership would stretch your cash too thin, or when you can consistently save and invest the difference. If this video helped you see something you did not know was there, subscribe to Smart Money and hit the notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day. A home is not automatically a better financial decision than renting. It becomes one only when the price, rate, time horizon, and hidden costs work together.